Hello. Yeah, first of all, congratulations on Donald J. Trump for the 7th United States of America president comeback. We are Korean, very happy to hear that the Donald J. Trump president come back again already started the golden age of the United States. Yeah, today, these materials prepared and sent by the Indo-Pacific Strategy Institute are intended to inform the American people and the American friends of the serious situation unfolding in the midst of the fierce, invisible warfare between China and the United States currently taking place on Korean Peninsula. I'd like to present a realistic alternative that Korea and the United States can jointly pursue to dismantle and destroy the Chinese Communist Party. Today's topic is the Chinese Communist Party will spread the plague on the U.S. military base in Gunsan. Hello, this is Suyong-Choi, the representative of the Indo-Pacific Strategy Institute in Republic of Korea. I would appreciate it if you could forward this letter to President Donald J. Trump and his staffs. My email address is as below. If you want to contact me, please send me an email. I am a former case officer of the National Intelligence Service of the Republic of Korea, and I was a security case officer who mainly dealt with North Korean and Chinese issues on the ground. I graduated from the Department of Chinese Language and Literature at Seoul National University and received a master's degree in Chinese, consecutive and simultaneous interpretation from the Graduate School of Interpretation and Translation at Hankuk University of Foreign Studies, and mainly worked in China and in America and Asia. Please forward this letter to President Donald J. Trump and his courageous and loyal staff. The Chinese Communist Party is concerned that the rise of President Donald J. Trump will eliminate their minions on the Korean Peninsula and drive out the Chinese Communist Party. Therefore, they will spread highly lethal infectious disease throughout Korea. On January 8th at 11:30 a.m., Lee Jae-myung, the leader of the Democratic Party of Korea, rented an entire floor of a book cafe in Mapo-gu, Seoul, and held a New Year's greeting event for foreign reporters from Xinhua News Agency, People's Daily Online, and other Chinese and Japanese news agencies without U.S. news agencies. At this point, Lee Jae-myung made the following statement. The number of ants increases, but when war breaks out, there are ants with their necks cut off and their waist cut off. As we live, humans also do not escape from that, and through large-scale wars, they reduce their populations. As we gradually move towards a situation where we can only satisfy our desires by taking someone else's things, conflicts intensify, beliefs are strengthened, and if we continue the conflict a little longer, I am worried that something like a large-scale war will eventually occur. But it seems that we are continuing to move toward that. Foreign correspondents, including Chinese and Japanese reporters, attended the event, and it was quite unusual for such a statement to be made at the New Year's greeting events. Lee Jae-myung is currently hoping for large-scale bloodshed, so it is suspected that he may have asked China to create chaos equivalent to war by spreading a large-scale war or epidemic disease. Currently, Lee Jae-myung is expected to be arrested around the end of February due to the result of various ongoing trials, and he believes that if he is arrested this time, he may be extradited to the United States on charges of remittance to North Korea, etc. So it seems that he thinks that if a bloody incident due to war or biochemical warfare breaks out across the Korea Peninsula before the end of February and the entire Republic of Korea becomes paralyzed, he may not be arrested. If the Supreme Court trial result for Lee Hwa-young, former Vice Governor of Gyeonggi Province, on remittance to North Korea, are released around the end of January or February, the trial of Lee Jae-myung, leader of the Democratic Party of Korea, on remittances to North Korea, is expected to be held in the first trial, and he will be found guilty at the same time. In the appeal trial of Lee Hwa-young's remittance to North Korea, it was confirmed that he sent $8 million to North Korea, and it was ruled that $3 million of that was for Lee Jae-myung's visit to North Korea. Therefore, when the Supreme Court's final ruling on Lee Hwa-young comes out around the end of January or February, Lee Jae-myung will automatically be found guilty in the trial related to remittances to North Korea. Lee Jae-myung trial regarding false testimony was found not guilty in the first trial, but the judges of the first trial acknowledged Lee Jae-myung's false testimony, but declared him not guilty, saying there was no intent. Since Lee Jae-myung was found not guilty in the first trial, there is nothing he can do in the second trial, and the trial cannot be delayed any longer. Also, there are no special documents to be submitted by the prosecutor. Therefore, if the appellate court judge makes a proper ruling, the case is expected to be detained in court around the end of February. Since the motion to arrest Lee Jae-myung has already passed the National Assembly and is still valid, he will be detained in court the moment a prison sentence is requested. Also, his second trial ruling on Lee Jae-myung's violation of the Public Official Election Act will be made around the end of February. If he is sentenced to a fine of more than 1 million won, Lee Jae-myung will lose his seat in the National Assembly, and the Democratic Party of Korea will have to return 43.4 billion won in state subsidies for the 2022 presidential election, when Lee Jae-myung ran as a presidential candidate. Since Lee Jae-myung was sentenced to 1 year in prison and 2 years of probation in the first trial, there is a 0% chance that his sentence will be less than a fine of 1 million won. If President Yoon Suk-yeol is impeached and loses his presidency around February 15, a presidential election must be held within 60 days. So, the presidential election will likely be held around April 14th. However, Lee Jae-myung will be arrested before he becomes the Democratic Party's presidential candidate, and even if he is elected president, his election will be cancelled if the Supreme Court rules on the two trials. Lee Jae-myung is also well aware of these circumstances and is well aware that the trial related to remittances to North Korea will result in a guilty verdict before May. Lee Jae-myung is well aware that if the charges of sending money to North Korea are confirmed, he will likely stand trial in the United States and could be imprisoned in Guantanamo Bay. Lee Jae-myung also knows that he could be extradited to the United States because he must undergo an investigation by the New York District Attorney Office for sending money to North Korea using Ethereum, a cryptocurrency created by American Virgil Griffiths. Therefore, it is analyzed that Lee Jae-myung asked the Chinese Communist Party to spread the epidemic throughout Korea and cause a large number of deaths. 7 key witnesses and people involved in Lee Jae-myung's trial have died, passed away. Considering this, it is quite possible to suspect that Lee Jae-myung asked the Chinese Communist Party to spread the epidemic throughout Korea in order to avoid being extradited to the United States. The current expected area of the epidemic are Gunsan, 평택, 부산, 창원, 울산, 거제도, 광주, 청주, and 당진. Gunsan is at the same latitude as Qingdao, where a Chinese naval base is located, and the direction of the Air Force runway is toward the west coast of the Korean Peninsula. Gunsan has a Korean Air Force and U.S. Air Force base, and it is a place where the F-35A can be deployed in case of an emergency. Gunsan is also a very sensitive area for China, which is trying to control the west coast of the Korean Peninsula as the U.S. Space Force is deployed there. 평택 is home to Camp Humphreys, a U.S. military base, and a Samsung semiconductor plant. So if an infectious disease were to spread here, it would be possible to neutralize the world's largest U.S. military base in Korea and paralyze the Samsung semiconductor facilities. Also, Busan, Changwon, and Ulsan are where major Korean shipyard and defense companies such as HD Hyundai Heavy Industry and Hanwha Ocean are concentrated. If these areas are devastated by the epidemic, the U.S. Navy will not be able to carry out shipbuilding cooperation with Korea, and the U.S. Navy may collapse. It will become impossible for Korean shipbuilders to invest in the United States, and it will also become impossible to build and repair U.S. Navy ships in Korea. In Gwangju, there is a Korean Air Force base that oversees the West Sea of the Korea Peninsula, and at Cheongju Airport, the F-35A stealth fighters owned by the Korean Air Force are deployed. In addition, an F-35A maintenance depot is scheduled to be established in the future. There is a Hyundai Steel in Dangjin, and Hyundai Steel is currently planning to invest about $8 billion in the United States to build a steel mill. If Hyundai Steel in Dangjin collapses due to the epidemic, it will not be able to invest in the steel mill in the United States. And the revival of the shipbuilding and manufacturing in the United States will be in jeopardy. Then, the U.S. will continue to buy and use cheap Chinese steel products. There is currently an unknown epidemic going on throughout China, and there is a sudden shortage of sanatoriums. It seems that a lot of people are dying, but the Korean government is sending a large number of tourists to China. The Chinese government has extended visa-free travel for Koreans by 30 days to boost the tourism industry. On the other hand, the Yoon Suk-yeol government is responding by attracting a large number of Chinese tourists. President Yoon Suk-yeol has pursued a pro-China policy for the past 2 years, including appointing former Chief of Staff Kim Dae-gi, who does not speak a word of Chinese, as ambassador to China. President Donald J. Trump should strongly urge the Korean government to ban Koreans from entering China and to block Chinese people from entering Korea. In January 2020, about 1,000 students suddenly traveled from Wuhan, China to Daegu, and an infectious disease suddenly broke out in Daegu, so the Moon Jae-in government locked down the entire city. At the time, the general election was approaching, and the more deaths there were from infectious disease in Daegu, where many conservative voters lived, the more advantageous it was for the Moon Jae-in administration and the Democratic Party of Korea. The Moon Jae-in government intentionally increased the number of Chinese tourists entering Korea drastically in order to remove national criticism of Moon Jae-in government through political quarantine, despite the 7 press conferences held by the Medical Association at the time asking for a ban on Chinese tourists from entering Korea. And they carried out money-making election by distributing a large amount of government budget just before the general election, claiming that they would compensate for damage related to the infectious disease. As a result, they won the general election. Moon Jae-in knew that the Chinese Communist Party deliberately created the pandemic virus in Wuhan laboratories. Moon Jae-in, in collaboration with the Chinese Communist Party, sent infected students disguised as tourists to Daegu to annihilate the conservative Daegu citizens ahead of a general election and carried out an operation to spread the infectious disease throughout Daegu. Since the Democratic Party of Korea has a history of gaining political advantage through such political quarantine in the past, it is highly likely that Lee Jae-myung asked the Chinese Communist Party to intentionally spread the epidemic throughout Korea, causing a large number of deaths in order to prevent himself from being arrested. President Donald J. Trump, upon being elected, should immediately dispatch infectious disease experts to all U.S. military bases in Korea and strongly recommend to the Korean government to block Koreans from entering China, also block Chinese people from entering Korea. Moon Jae-in is also deeply involved in the current epidemic spreading. In order to prevent the Chinese Communist Party from spreading the epidemic throughout the Korea, Moon Jae-in and Lee Jae-myung should be immediately extradited to the United States for violating sanctions against North Korea. Also, Chinese and North Korean drugs and fentanyl are being exported to the United States through Incheon Airport in South Korea, and there is no control at all. There is an organization within the police called the Workplace Council, and this group is under the command of the local branch of the Korean Confederation of Trade Unions, a terrorist group that receives orders from North Korea and China. Currently, the total number of police officers in Korea is about 150,000, and it is said that about 30,000 to 50,000 police officers belong to the Workplace Council. They are intricately linked with 전라도 gangsters, 전라도 police, high-ranking officials of the Moon Jae-in and Yoon Suk-yeol administrations, the Korean Confederation of Trade Unions, the Democratic Party of Korea, and pro-Chinese politicians with the People Power Party, and are protecting drug organization. Also, the Moon Jae-in government is implementing a local police system, and each city and provincial government is implementing the local police system. Each city and provincial police has an organization called the Police Committee, and this Police Committee coordinates overall matters such as police personnel and administration. However, all the chairmen of the Police Commission are from the Lawyers for a Democratic Society, which is dominated by lawyers who received Kim Il-sung scholarships. As soon as President Yoon Suk-yeol took office, he declared that he would not receive reports from the Director of the National Intelligence Service and appointed Yoon Hee-gun, a graduate of the Chinese Academy of the Social Science, a Chinese Communist Party spy training institute, as the Commissioner General of the Korean National Police Agency. Yoon Hee-gun was promoted by 3 ranks in less than a year. As a result, the police power in Korea has already been completely transferred to the Chinese Communist Party. On May 16th, 2024, Police Commissioner General Yoon Hee-gun visited the Chinese Ministry of Public Security in Beijing, China, for the first time in 10 years to discuss response measures to current security issues between the two countries. However, Koreans suspect that all Koreans' information was handed over to Chinese public security authorities during this process. President Yoon Suk-yeol claims that he declared the martial law in order to root out anti-state forces, but this is an exaggerated statement, and it was President Yoon Suk-yeol who appointed a Chinese spy as the chief of the Korea National Police Agency. And it was also President Yoon Suk-yeol who did not investigate Moon Jae-in, a North Korean spy. Currently, the head of the Senior Civil Servants Corruption Investigation Office, Oh Dong-un, is causing a fuss by claiming to arrest President Yoon Suk-yeol, even though he does not have the authority to investigate the crimes of sedition. Oh Dong-un is a judge from the Our Law Research Association, a group of Kim Il-sung scholarship students within the judiciary, and was appointed by President Yoon Suk-yeol in May 2024. The current Secretary General of the National Election Commission, Kim Yong-bin, is a friend of President Yoon Suk-yeol. He claims that there was no election fraud and advocates expanding the use of electronic voting machine and electronic counting machine and expanding the early voting system. President Yoon Suk-yeol claims that martial law was declared in order to investigate election fraud by appointing this person as the Secretary General of the National Election Commission, but this is also likely an exaggerated statement. President Yoon Suk-yeol has lived his entire life as a special prosecutor, and he has spent his entire life fabricating evidence and falsely imprisoning innocent people. For example, the person who fabricated tablet PC evidence and impeached President Park Geun-hye on bribery charges was prosecutor Yoon Suk-yeol. The sword of the prosecution investigation into corruption against President Yoon Suk-yeol and his wife Kim Gun-hee was approaching, and he was scheduled to be impeached and arrested around January to March 2025 due to his failed medical policy. Then he suddenly declared martial law to extradite anti-state forces and election fraud, which surprised and embarrassed the people. Also, President Yoon Suk-yeol ordered the military general to arrest certain politicians, but then denied giving such an order and said that the generals acted on their own. As a result, the generals who participated in the martial law and were arrested are resenting President Yoon and seeming to regret their participation in the martial law. In fact, it has been revealed that most of these generals were people who had already pledged loyalty to the Moon Jae-in administration and were promoted and who completely lacked a sense of national or historical perspective. Article 82 of the Constitution of the Republic of Korea states as follows: the President acts under national law shall be in the form of documents, and these documents shall be countersigned by the Prime Minister and the relevant State Council members. The same shall also apply to military matters. Currently, the Constitutional Court is requesting the submission of records of the State Council regarding martial law. However, President Yoon Suk-yeol's legal team has been unable to submit the State Council records, and the ministers who participated in the emergency State Council meeting for martial law have also testified that no separate minutes were prepared. So the current situation may make impeachment inevitable due to violation of the Article 82 of the Constitution. Also, the martial law declaration states, if trainee doctors who leave the hospital do not return within 48 hours, they will be punished. Regarding this, the Minister of Health and the Welfare and the Minister of Education apologized to the public, to the doctors. Because the martial law declaration included contents intended to avoid the situation where interns working at university hospital across the country resigned as a result of the failure of the medical reform that President Yoon Suk-yeol had pushed through recklessly. President Yoon Suk-yeol's announcement to the public that martial law had to be declared in order to root out anti-state forces and investigate election fraud is contradictory and inconsistent. If we examine President Yoon Suk-yeol's words and actions one by one from a legal perspective, it becomes clear that they are all violations of the Constitution. President Park Geun-hye was also dismissed for lacking the will to protect the spirit of the Constitution. If we look at the situation revealed so far solely from a legal perspective, it is difficult to completely rule out the possibility that President Yoon Suk-yeol may be removed from office, as he has ignored all procedures for declaring martial law as specified in the Constitution and has shown no intention to uphold the spirit of the Constitution, such as by including in the martial law declaration his actions to make up for his own policy failures. The Chinese Communist Party, Moon Jae-in, the People Power Party, the Democratic Party of Korea, the 조선일보, the 중앙일보, the 동아일보, MBC, the Korean Confederation of Trade Union, and others are using the situation in which President Yoon Suk-yeol has no choice but to be impeached to employ a strategy of abolishing the presidential system and changing the political system to a parliamentary cabinet system, thereby weakening the ROK United States alliance. Therefore, please designate the Workplace Council within the police as a terrorist group linked to North Korea, China, and the Korea Confederation of Trade Unions, and also designate the member of the Workplace Council as a member of the terrorist group. Please also declare that the police committees established in which local governments as organizations associated with North Korea, China, and the Korean Confederation of Trade Union, and impose sanctions on all those involved. And we need to select a reliable group within Korea that can cooperate with the U.S. intelligence agency and provide financial support. The pro-China group and the Democratic Party of Korea, which are supported by the Chinese Communist Party, are abusing lawsuits and the accusations without exception if they do not like something, and if the anti-China groups cannot afford the lawyers' fees they will lose. Because the Chinese Communist Party's intelligence agency provides the massive amounts of funds to pro-Chinese forces in Korea, members of anti-Chinese groups comprised of civilians are being sued and indicted one after one another, causing great economic hardship. They are barely surviving on the proceeds from selling their homes and cars, but that is reaching its limit and they lack the power to fend off attacks from pro-China groups that receive massive funding from the Chinese Communist Party. Therefore, when President Donald J. Trump takes office, we hope that he will immediately provide financial and other support to Korean private intelligence agencies that can cooperate with the United States intelligence agencies in Korea. According to the current political funding law in Korea, party members can pay unlimited party dues. For example, if I have $1 billion, there is no legal problem in paying $1 billion in party dues. However, if a non-party member donates to a political party, the maximum amount is 5 million won. Therefore, it is very necessary to provide a large amount of money to a trustworthy person in Korea and create a political party with that money. If the party is created in this way and recruit the politician from the People Power Party who are not observed by the Chinese Communist Party and recruited former President Park Geun-hye as an advisor. It is easy to create a pro-American party and have it enter the National Assembly. China has already taken control of all domestic political parties, including the People Power Party and the Democratic Party of Korea, with Moon Jae-in's black money. It is very, very important and absolutely necessary for the security of the United States to create a new political party in Korea. It is necessary to create a pro-American policy by quickly creating a political party that the United States can control, sending it to the National Assembly, and completely reforming the electoral system. Thank you for listening. May God's grace and blessing be with America and the American people forever. Thank you.